You know, I appear only on Canadian television.
Is that right? Do you
Yeah.
boycott television in the United States?
Well, I'm intimidated for some reason in the United States, but not here. I don't know what the explanation is. I think you're more hospitable.
Oh, for a moment I was wondering if that was a put-down. I mean, should I try to intimidate
For
you?
both of us, I think. If it is.
Every time I say Kurt Vonnegut, I want to say Junior. When did you actually drop the Junior from your...
Well, there are a lot of people who aren't juniors who read a whole lot into my changing my name from Kurt Vonnegut Jr. to Kurt Vonnegut on my last book. But the reason I was Kurt Vonnegut Jr. in the first place was that there used to be another Kurt Vonnegut on this planet. He had a checking account, I had one. He had bills, I had them, and so forth, and so there was nothing Freudian about it.
Nothing profound or philosophical about it at all?
No, it was a bookkeeping necessity, and he didn't keep up with his bills the way he should have.
Listen, I'm not sure whether we should open this show, which is our salute to spring, with you. Because when you spoke to the graduating class of Bennington College, 1970, you said, and I think you were quoting yourself on Earth Day in New York City earlier, you said, I am rarely asked to speak in the springtime because I am a total pessimist. I said everything was going to get worse, and everything has got worse.
Well, since that time, I have learned a lot from Alcoholics Anonymous without joining Alcoholics Anonymous, but I have decided that even if you aren't a drunk, it's a very good idea to live one day at a time. And so I am totally optimistic about tomorrow and probably most of the springtime, so I've cheered up some. It's all right now.
What, was there a turning point from describing yourself as a total pessimist to what you just said?
Oh, well, I think when I turned 50, I said, you know, this is bad enough without being a pessimist, too. And so I self-consciously cheered up.
Do you really know the answers to everything?
I haven't been stumped very often. What would you like to know?
Well, I would... We'll get to that. But you write about yourself that... I think you say only two other people are as certain about everything as you are. They're, I think, Billy Graham and the Maharishi.
Yes, and the Maharishi has faded some, I think, since he started levitating. I know what people should do with their lives, and I offered this service for a long time. It was called life engineering. And if you had a problem, you could bring it to me. There was no charge for this, and I would tell you what to do. I mean, psychiatrists won't do this.
No, they just keep asking questions.
Yes, as they use a Socratic method, we don't do that. We tell you what to do. Now,
is this an institution or anything?
Well, it failed for a very interesting reason, is that people would not do what I told them to do. So I realized that we were going to have to make an alliance with whatever Succeeded Murder Incorporated, you know, where you can have somebody killed for $700. And we would say, you know, before you start doing business with life engineering, you've got to understand that if you don't do what we tell you to do, we're going to have you killed. Because otherwise, they won't do it. And I don't think there was any bad advice we gave. Financial advice, marital advice.
Was this all based on your biochemical, anthropological analysis of humankind?
I think it was just very sound instinct of what people should do. But I think that one reason people are so uncomfortable now, there are a couple of reasons. One is that they don't have enough friends and relatives, as we don't have big extended families. The other thing is that there's nobody who will tell people what to do anymore. And, you know, just simply order them to do it. And I think people are so grateful for that.
Yeah, I am. You don't want to bring back dictators, do you? Well, to bring them back, there's still a few around, right?
Well, I'd like people to tell me what to do. A lot of times I can't figure out what to do. And I think a very useful sort of citizen to stir people up and intimidate them. And sure, the dictatorship's very good within limits, I think. And the Germans certainly enjoy it, you know.
They enjoyed it, but there were several million people who didn't.
It's forgotten now, I think.
I don't think totally. I hope not. When I quoted your biochemical anthropological analysis, that is from the quotation in which you said, I have the answers to everything. And you were arguing that everything was determined by chemistry. In fact, you said if you came back, I think in another incarnation, that you would take up your analysis as a profession, because then you would be able to understand everyone.
And studying blood and all that. Well, yes, I don't think people drive each other crazy. Angel Street, where Charles Boyer drives, who's his wife in that? Do you remember? Well, it's the play anyway, where a man drives his wife crazy. Human beings can't actually do that.
What does it?
You can't even drive your own children crazy. It's chemicals. It's chemical imbalance. And the people who are going to go nuts have something wrong with their metabolism. And that's basically... That's a very popular idea in Canada, isn't it?
Well, there are people who are working on it, and Dr. Abraham Hoffer is certainly...
Well, I'm a vested interest here, because my son went crazy in Canada and wrote a fine book about it. I mean, it wasn't very funny. He went into a padded cell. I put him in a padded cell once, and they let him go. After about 6 weeks, and the Mounties brought him back and put him in there. And he was treated by Canadian doctors and treated mainly with diet. And so he's finishing his 3rd year at Harvard Medical School. That's a pretty decent remission, I would say.
And he also wrote a wonderful book about it.
Wrote a book about it, but he is treated chemically, and I'm sure that's what we'll come to very soon. But I don't think parents are responsible for their children going crazy, and thank God, because I had a child going crazy, so I say I couldn't possibly be guilty. It's metabolism.
How do I know you're telling me the truth?
Because I don't lie that often. I'm trying to think of what I lie about the war.
Well, in Cat's Cradle, your philosophy of FOMA, right? The pursuit of FOMA is living by untruths, harmless untruths, you say. You should live that way.
Yeah, but it's an elitist idea. I like the idea of religion of lying to dumber people, not like people in this audience. I don't know where the dumb people are I have in mind, but I think it is so comforting to somebody if you can persuade him that life is this way or that way, you believe it and everything, and start living according to it. But
would that be a harmless untruth?
Yeah, I think so. I knew a minister on Cape Cod. His name was Bob Nicholson, and he looked like Joseph Cotton. Did I discuss him when we were on the show?
No.
Well, he has passed on, but he was an Episcopal minister there, and every time one of his parishioners died, his Nicholson was just outraged. He would cry, he couldn't sleep. It was inconsolable, and his congregation would have to get around him and everything and say, look, there is a heaven, and God's going to welcome this person, and everything. We would finally persuade the minister that maybe there was a little something to it, but I watched
the minister had, or the congregation had to prop up the minister's...
Yeah, because he'd lose his faith every time somebody died. He was what kind of a God would allow this to happen?
You're not religious yourself. You were raised an atheist and have stayed an atheist.
Yeah, but I think it's been going on so long that it's essentially an ancestral religion, and I think I just honored the faith of my fathers and my grandfathers, and
the Vonnegut's have been atheists for generation after generation.
Yes, and very proudly so, and there were architects. They loved churches for the architecture, but they thought what people said in there was just preposterous. And so this consoles me that I disbelieve the way my ancestors did, and I'm sure it's a religion like any other one.
I would like to ask Kurt Vonnegut, author of Old Cat's Cradle, Breakfast of Champions, Slaughterhouse-Five, you name it, he's written it. Do you believe in censorship?
Well, I want to comment on the list of books there just a minute. My foot doctor thinks I wrote Kon-Tiki. Why? Every time I go, you start working on your own toenails. Anybody can do surgery of that sort at home until, the streaks start going up your leg. Anyway, every time I go to a foot doctor, the same foot doctor, he says, Kon-Tiki, right? And I say, right. And that's it. All right. I didn't write Kon-Tiki.
Why does he think so?
I don't know. It's the only book he ever read. He was just trying to get lucky, I guess.
Do you believe in censorship, Thor Heyerdahl?
Well, I used to believe in censorship because there was so much we did not know. And saying all the dirty words and having sex scenes and all that, I kept away from those for a long time because it seemed plausible to believe what Richard Nixon believes and what a lot of people believe, that some lunatics or some borderline lunatics, impressionable people, in seeing these words or reading these scenes might go out and commit some criminal act. That seemed logical to me, too. Just in the past 10 or 15 years, there's an awful lot of data on hand that books, in fact, do not harm people, that they don't inflame people in penitentiaries or nut houses or damage the minds of children. So we are no longer running a risk putting such scenes in books. It's not a health problem. I thought it might be, but the scientific evidence is now that it's not a health problem.
The reason I asked you is because I had a call this week from a high school teacher in upstate New York.
In Elizabethtown.
No, as a matter of fact, it was Saranac Lake, I think.
Well, it's all in that same area.
Right. So you know about what's happening there.
Well, my brother was just up there, and he Xeroxed a couple of local papers and sent me the...
They are trying to keep Slaughterhouse-Five, your book about the bombing of the civilian population of Dresden. They are trying to keep that out of the high schools there because it's got rude words in it.
On the second page, which is lucky for the smut hunters, is they don't have to read the whole book. No, it's what is shattering there, and the only thing that's shattering in the book is there aren't scenes of cruelty or anything else in there. There is this word has to do with copulating with your own mother, and this just really wows some people, apparently. But also, there's some patriotic outfit that is circulating a list of books that decent schools should not have. And so school boards all over the country, all over the United States, and quite probably in Canada, too, have said that these books must be thrown out of the library, and they do it without reading them. And censorship is unconstitutional in the United States. The American Civil Liberties Union now has a crisis. They've lost about a fifth of their membership because the American Nazi Party is going to march in Skokie, Illinois very soon, and through a predominantly Jewish neighborhood. And the American Civil Liberties Union is going to defend them because they have to defend them in order to defend the First Amendment. But the First Amendment is a tragic amendment. I mean, it's an important one, but it does cause a whole lot of pain. I sympathize with fundamentalist Christians in West Virginia who do not want their children reading some books, as I know how much it hurts them.
Even if they were your books?
Yes, as I can understand the pain that they feel, as they can't even, they aren't even allowed to say what goes into their kids' heads and what doesn't, except they must endure that as Americans because of the First Amendment, but I think it's tragic. And when the Nazis march in Skokie, that's going to be tragic. It's a bearable tragedy. But, by God, it is tragic. It's a terrible thing to see. And any parent who says, I don't want my kids reading that garbage by Vonnegut, a perfectly sensible statement.
Geez, I want my kids to read Vonnegut. And they do.
Yeah, well, that's a better statement.
Do you believe in science? as one of the, I mean, you're often called a science fiction writer. I happen to think
Well, my
it's not a very good
training
label.
has been largely scientific, and I've spent more time with scientists than I have with writers because my older brother Bernard Dr. Bernard Vonnegut, is a distinguished scientist, and as a kid I would hang out with his friends. And so,
But haven't you advised young people not to go into science?
yeah, because so much of it goes into weaponry. It's such barbarous people. Politicians finally decide what these lovely discoveries are going to be used for. I mean, the laser is going to be used to kill with. That's a very interesting use for a laser. It all is going to be used to kill with one way or another, and it's been said of my works that they have everything but originality, and lots of scientists after the Second World War were saying they were no longer going to give information to the government because it was going to be misused. It wasn't going to be used for mankind, it was going to be used against it. Norbert Wiener is the father of the cybernetic revolution here. Wrote an article in the Atlantic Monthly saying he wasn't going to tell the government anything anymore. And when I read that, I was 20 years old. And so it's Norbert Wiener's idea.
What would you say to my son, who is unfortunately named Peter Zosky Jr., without the junior on yet, but he'll learn. Except I keep getting these calls from 18-year-old girls, which is quite nice. But what would you say to him? He's in second year environmental engineering. He's you may not call that science, but for him it's the pursuit of technology for what he sees a good cause. Now, is he misguided, and is that wrong for young people?
No, I would think of that's not a highly leveraged area of science. I would think if you get into very fancy biology or working with particle accelerators or wherever, where you're going to be dealing with potentially enormous forces, that is one thing. Actually, I would like people working in those areas and not publishing. Is just telling a few other people they trust what they found. But no, on the lower level of cleaning up rivers and all that, no, it's a splendid area of science. It's civil engineering.
Didn't you have an awful shock because your brother did a lot of original work in the field of cloud seeding, didn't he? In sending, is it silver iodide?
Yeah.
Into the clouds and then he found out that had been used as a weapon of war.
For years and years and years, yeah. They had all these planes up there. They know what to do. They send a couple of them out and throw paprika all over everything to slow the war down, and they were throwing everything they could think of out of airplanes. And while they were at it, hell, they just load up the sky with silver iodide. See if that won't make them surrender. Yeah, no, he was shocked, and that was the only instance where somebody I knew well suddenly found out the defense people had been using his discoveries for hostile purposes, and he's into tornadoes.